Welcome to Regarding Relationships, the podcast where we dive into all things relationships. The ones we choose, the ones we're born into, and the messy ones we're still figuring out. I'm your host, Hayley, a licensed therapist, author, and soon-to-be doctor of social work. Yep, I'm almost there. I've spent years working with individuals, couples, and families, and I've seen firsthand what brings us closer and what pushes us apart. Together, we'll explore the mess and magic of human connection. So, let's get into it. Hey everyone, I'm so glad you're here. I'm your host, Hayley. Thanks for making me part of your day. And welcome to Self-Validation, Unseen and Unbothered. Before we dive in, just a quick note. This space is a little different, and that's on purpose. In a world that's always buzzing, full of screens, noise, and endless movement, I wanted to create something simpler. No flashy edits, no loud music, no jarring transitions, just a quiet, minimal space that's designed to help you slow down. Think of it as a chance to take a deep breath, settle your nervous system, and come back to yourself. My hope is that this feels calming and grounding, giving you a moment to really tune in, reflect, and connect. So whenever you're ready, let's begin. This is the very first episode of Regarding Relationships. And since this podcast is about the many ways we connect with others, it felt so right to start with one of the most important relationships we'll ever have. The relationship we have with ourselves. How would you describe your relationship with yourself right now? For some of us, it might feel loving and supportive, like having an inner cheerleader. For others, it might feel distant or strained, or even critical, more like having an inner judge than a friend. And for many, it's a mix of both, shifting throughout the day. So many of us know what it means to feel a little lost or disconnected from who we are deep down. We've learned how to take care of others, to put their needs first, to people please, and to push our own needs aside. Often so automatically that we don't even notice we're doing it. For some of us, this pattern started early in life, shaped by trauma, neglect, or the expectations placed on us by family. For others, it's been reinforced by culture. Messages to be nice, don't make waves, keep the peace, even when it costs us our own well-being. In a world that often rewards selflessness and passivity, it's no wonder that so many of us become experts at showing up for everyone else while forgetting how to truly show up for ourselves. But please know that if self-neglect sounds familiar, you are not alone, and it is not a personal flaw. It's just a human response, a way of adapting, surviving, and belonging in the environments that we've known. This episode is not about placing blame. It's about exploring what it can look like to gently turn back toward yourself, not in a selfish way, but in a deeply necessary and life-giving way. Because when we're not fully connected to who we are, it's very difficult to build meaningful, authentic connections with others. So before we can grow our relationships with others, we need to gently find our way back home to ourselves. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the title of this episode. You might be wondering, why unseen and unbothered? Well, I named this episode Unseen and Unbothered because right now, visibility feels like everything. Social media, likes, followers, influence, it's everywhere. And honestly, wanting to be seen, known, and understood is a deeply human need. We all want to feel valued and heard. That longing for connection is not a weakness. It's survival. In fact, the need to belong shows up today in the form of posts, likes, and followers, but the need itself is much older than social media. It's written into our DNA, carried forward from our earliest ancestors. Long before modern life, our survival depended on belonging to the group. To be rejected by the tribe could mean isolation. And in those times, isolation could mean danger or even death. So our nervous systems are wired to crave belonging. It's not vanity, it's instinct, a survival drive deeply embedded in who we are. But sometimes in the search for that outside recognition, we forget to turn our attention inward. We forget to ask ourselves important questions like, what do I truly think? How do I really feel? What do I genuinely want and need? For many of us, those questions have been answered by others, whether it's family, friends, culture, or society. So much so that we might not even recognize our own answers anymore. In other words, we've stopped seeing ourselves. But what if we started gently turning inward? What if we practiced being curious about ourselves with kindness? What if we practiced a little something called self-validation? At its core, self-validation is the act of standing with yourself, noticing and validating what you feel, and giving yourself permission to feel it, trusting that your perspective is real and worthy. Self-validation is a practice that takes time, intention, and a lot of repetition. And while it isn't always easy to do, especially with self-doubt whispering in the background, the more we practice self-validation, the stronger and steadier our sense of self becomes. Imagine feeling misunderstood or misjudged. And now picture yourself being able to gently say, I hear what you believe about me, but that's not who I am. Imagine adding, I know myself, and you don't get to define me because I already have. This is not about ego or arrogance. It's about embracing your true self. It's a quiet, steady kind of strength. The power of being seen by yourself first and being unbothered by the noise around you. Not because you don't care about others' opinions, but because you don't let those opinions define your worth or value. Okay, so what does this inner work actually look like? What does it mean to live unseen and unbothered? Well, I'm going to share today 5 gentle practices to help us step back from depending on outside approval and to begin building the muscle of self-validation from within. These are not quick fixes, but simple practices you can return to again and again. Small steps that over time can help you feel more grounded in who you are. Okay, so gentle self-validation practice number 1. Name your emotions to understand yourself better. One of the most powerful things we can do for ourselves is to name what we're feeling. Now, this might sound simple, but the act alone, putting words to an emotion, is the first real step back to yourself. It's how self-validation begins. Because here's the truth. No one else can tell you how to feel, and honestly, no one else should. Your emotions are yours, real, valid, and worth listening to, even when they're messy or hard to explain. So the next time something stirs in you, maybe it's a comment or a look of rejection, don't rush to fix it or get someone else's reassurance. Just pause and ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? In fact, I invite you to try this. I've linked a feelings wheel on my YouTube page. Take a minute with it. Find the word that most closely matches what's going on inside. Then notice where that emotion lives in your body. This small practice builds awareness, and awareness, that's the beginning of caring for yourself with more kindness and trust. Gentle self-validation practice number 2. Acknowledge your thoughts and feelings without judgment. The point of this practice isn't to decide if your feeling is right or wrong. It's simply giving it space. When we judge or dismiss our emotions, we often end up pushing them down, which only makes them louder over time, by the way. But when we acknowledge them with compassion, we create room for those feelings to soften and move through us. This will help you to build a deeper sense of self-trust instead of needing someone else to tell you that your feelings are valid. You can begin relying on your own voice. And over time, this simple shift can make you feel calmer, more centered, and more in tune with yourself. I invite you to try this. When a feeling comes up, whether it's sadness, anger, or even something small like irritation, pause and say to yourself, "It makes sense that I feel this way." Gentle self-validation practice number 3. Use self-compassion to soften your inner critic. Practicing self-validation means learning to shift that inner dialogue. We often treat ourselves more harshly than we would a friend. Now, the point is not to sugarcoat everything or to ignore our mistakes. It's about offering ourselves the same compassion, patience, and encouragement that we would freely give to someone we love. Self-compassion is a practice of kindness that helps us heal shame and quiet self-judgment, making it easier to grow and change. I invite you to try this. Notice the tone of voice you use with yourself. Is it harsh, critical, doubting? Many of us speak to ourselves in ways that we would never speak to a friend. So the next time you notice a self-critical thought, pause and imagine what you would say to a dear friend in that moment, and then say those kind words to yourself. This simple shift can be incredibly healing and empowering. Gentle self-validation practice number 4. Replace external questions with internal ones. So often, without realizing it, we measure ourselves by what others might be thinking. Questions like, do they like me? Did I say the right thing? What will they think? These can become very automatic. And while it's natural to care about connection, living only by external approval keeps us stuck in someone else's story about who we are. Self-validation invites us to flip the script. Instead of asking, what do they think about me? Try asking, what do I think of me right now? What do I need in this moment? What feels true to me? I invite you to gently experiment with this shift today. The next time you notice yourself wondering about someone else's opinion, pause and check in with your own. Even a single moment of turning inward is a step toward trusting your own voice. Gentle self-validation practice number 5. Celebrate small wins. Learning to validate yourself isn't about grand gestures. It's built in the little choices you make every day. Each time you set a small boundary, say no when you need to, speak up when it matters, or simply honor your feelings instead of pushing them aside, you are practicing self-validation. These moments might feel small, but they do add up. And please know that every time you choose your voice, you are strengthening the belief that your needs, feelings, and perspectives truly matter. Over time, those small wins form the foundation of a steadier, more confident relationship with yourself. So, I invite you to notice one of these moments in your own life today. It could be as simple as giving yourself permission to rest, speaking kindly to yourself after a mistake, or saying yes to something that feels aligned for you. Take a deep breath and acknowledge it. That was me trusting myself. All right, for my closing thoughts today, I just want to restate that before we can truly connect deeply with anyone else, the most important relationship we have is the one we have with ourselves. It starts with knowing who you are with kindness, curiosity, and acceptance. Loving yourself and all your beautiful complexity is the foundation for every meaningful connection you'll ever make. This journey isn't always easy, and it's okay to take it one gentle step at a time. That's exactly what this practice is here for, to support you as you come home to yourself, discover your worth, and grow into the fullness of who you are. Remember, you are not alone in this, so take a deep breath, be patient with yourself, and know that you are worthy of all the love and connection you seek, starting with your own. Thank you so much for listening today. If something from this episode spoke to you, I'd love to hear it. Drop a comment or share a question about a relationship that's on your mind. Big or small, your questions can spark conversations we all can learn from. And if you'd like to keep exploring these topics with me, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. I'm grateful you're here. I'll see you next time. And until then, stay curious, stay kind, and stay connected.